What's up, guys? You are watching Fight Feed, and today I'm going to be going through all of my fight picks and predictions for the upcoming UFC Atlanta Fight Night card happening on June 14th. Diving into my picks, I'm going to give you guys a quick summary of all the picks that I'm making for this week's fight card. Fight number 1, I'm going with Jamey-Lyn Horth. Fight number 2, I'm going with Phil Rowe. Fight number 3, this one's a tough one, guys, but I'm going Ricky Simón. He's coming off of some big stuff recently. Might regret that one. Fight number 4, Cody Durden. Fight number 5, Malcolm Wellmaker. Fight number 6, Michael Chiesa. Fight number 7, Rodolfo Bellato. Fight number 8, Omar Sy, whatever the fuck his last name is. Fight number 9, Mansour Abdul-Malik. Fight number 10, this is a tough one too, guys, but I'm going Raoni Barcelos. Fight number 11, I'm going Edmen Shahbazyan. Fight number 12, I am going Miranda Maverick. And fight number 13, Joaquin Buckley. So now that I've given you guys all of my individual picks or the summary of my picks for this card, I am now going to dive into each fight, giving you a breakdown of why I'm choosing the way I'm choosing. And so we will start it off with fight number 1, Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Vanessa Demopoulos. I am going with Jamey-Lyn Horth in this matchup, mainly because when you look at the two of these fighters, both of them somewhat successful in the UFC. You got Jamie, who's 2-2 in the UFC. Vanessa's 5-4 in the UFC. Jamey-Lyn Horth has, it looks like 43% of her wins by KO. And then you have, Vanessa on the other hand, who's gotten quite a few decisions, 55% of her wins by decision. A lot of those decisions too have been contested, if you will, in terms of, MMA fans and watching the fights, feeling like the other person won. And then one of the main outlier things that I look at too is age. So Jamey-Lyn Horth is actually younger in age in this matchup, but then the other aspect is Jamey-Lyn Horth has a significant size advantage over Vanessa Demopoulos. And when I look at Vanessa Demopoulos' recent fights, when she has been at a disadvantage size-wise, it just does not seem to play out well for her. And I think that that's a big criteria that I am leaning on in terms of making my decision. I just think that Jamey-Lyn Horth is going to have more tools, and not only have those tools like with her grappling and striking, but also have that size advantage that I don't think Vanessa Demopoulos will be able to mitigate in any way. So it could be wrong, as we know with women's fights sometimes, but I'm feeling Jamey-Lyn Horth is going to get the W. Fight number 2 on the card, Phil Rowe versus Ange Loosa. So this fight is, I'm going with Phil Rowe just based off of Phil Rowe's, a little bit older than Ange Loosa, but Ange Loosa has been kind of he's been a tricky fighter to score in the octagon. I mean, the guy really has not gotten any big wins in the UFC. He is 2-2, but I feel like they were just kind of lackluster wins. And then he did have that no contest against Bryan Battle where Bryan Battle was beating the shit out of him. Just not a lot to write home about. He's going to have a significant disadvantage, too, when it comes to his reach and height in this fight, given that Phil Rowe, I think, has like an 80-inch reach or something like that, and he's also 6'3". But that could also be a disadvantage for Phil Rowe, given that it's a 170-pound fight. I just feel like Phil Rowe is 3-3 in the UFC. He has a lot of wins by KO. I feel like he is going to be able to hurt Ange Loosa on the feet and make Ange Loosa kind of be playing that hesitation game, being behind a step, and he could get a finish on Ange Loosa, or I could see him even getting a unanimous decision just based off of output and performance. The next fight on the card, we've got Ricky Simón versus Charles Jourdain. So this is one that I was having a troubling time in terms of making a decision. When I look at these guys stat-wise, you got Ricky Simón is only a few years older, being that he's 32, and Charles Jourdain is 29. But Ricky Simón has a wealth of experience in the UFC, 9-5 in the UFC. Not much greater, though. In fact, Ricky and Charles have the same exact amount of fights in UFC. So Charles Jourdain has 7. He says 7-7 in UFC. Ricky Simón's 9-5. Both have 14 fights in the UFC. Ricky Simón, though, has, I took a note on this, coming off of a huge KO, guys. He knocked out Basharat back in UFC Seattle because he's from Washington. Huge KO when he got that against Basharat. I don't think anyone expected that by any means. And I think that Ricky Simón has a game where his wrestling and submission game is solid enough on the ground to where I think he will be able to at least hold his own against Charles Jourdain there. Should Charles Jourdain try to take this to the ground, which I imagine he will, because that is mainly his game. But Charles Jourdain's a really good fighter, guys. And so what I'm worried about here is I worry that Charles Jourdain could potentially out-grapple and then submit Ricky Simón. But given that Ricky Simón got that KO over Basharat, I just feel like that is a high-level win. It could have been a fluke KO, but I just feel like given that you have Charles Jourdain who, lost to Gene Silva by, just basically getting manhandled and knocked out, I worry about his chin against a guy who's a similar build to Gene Silva, being that Ricky Simón's a little bit smaller, stockier. And then Ricky Simón also has, I'm pretty sure he has the last win over Merab, which was back in 2018. He choked fucking Merab out, I guess. So I just feel like Ricky Simón in this case, although he has a similar experience to that of Charles Jourdain, I think he's fought higher level talent given that he has a win over the current bantamweight champion. But this one could definitely go left and definitely go in the way of Charles Jourdain. Fight number 4, we got Cody Durden versus Jose Ochoa. So I'm going Cody Durden, which I think, you're going to see a lot of people online, I think, picking opposite, because Cody Durden's had, several losses in the UFC. He's 6-5 in the UFC, and he's 34 years old at flyweight, so that's something to be worried about. Now, Jose Ochoa, his opponent, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He's only 24 years old. I just feel like Jose does not have a lot of experience, and because of that, I'm leaning heavily towards Cody Durden. Cody Durden usually is always scrappy in every fight that he's in, unless he gets caught and hurt or caught in a submission. But even when he's caught in submissions, he's scrappy in a way of finding a way to get out of submissions and still, continuously offensively grapple against his opponent. I feel like in this case, he's just going to have all of those elements in his favor, but he's also a hometown kid. He's from Georgia. I feel like that's also going to play into this. Now, you could play that on the other side, though, and say, maybe the pressure, but I feel like Cody Durden seems like the type of guy who just doesn't give a shit about that. He's going to go out there and try and whoop your ass. And having that type of mindset and experience above that of your opponent is going to be a feather in the cap for Cody Durden. I think he's going to be able to get the win here, guys. Fight number 5, we've got Malcolm Wellmaker versus Kris Moutinho. So this is an interesting fight because Kris Moutinho, as most of us remember, got his ass whooped by Sean O'Malley, but he stayed in there for 3 rounds, just taking a bludgeoning. And then it seemed like after that O'Malley fight, his chin just lost its granite power, if you will, given that, I think he got knocked out 2 times after he fought Sean. But apparently now he is on a 5-fight win streak and looking very good. I think that Malcolm Wellmaker could potentially be one of the next guys up, though, when we look at the bantamweight weight class. I just think that Malcolm Wellmaker, him getting that KO win over Cameron Simon, who's no slouch by any means, I think he has a different level of power in his hands. I think he has a different level of speed and also timing in his punches. I think when you kind of compound all of those components, he is probably likely to catch Kris Moutinho and shut that button off once again. And that is what I think will probably happen in this fight. And that is why I'm going Malcolm Wellmaker. Fight number 6, we've got Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. So these are 2 guys who are, grizzled veterans at this point. Michael Chiesa, one of my favorites from the UFC Live Ultimate Fighter season. Actually, when I think about the UFC and kind of like time when I actually got into UFC, it was literally like watching reruns of that season on Spike. Specifically, seeing Michael Chiesa, because, I'm a thinner guy, and like, especially when I was in high school, very thin. I always like saw him. I'm like, dude, this guy's like skinny as fuck, but he's going out there and beating these guys' ass. I always just Love that about him. And so I feel like I've always had a kind of like a link to Michael Chiesa in terms of like he was one of the first guys, in addition to like the Diaz brothers and stuff, that I was watching and knew of in the UFC. And now fighting Court McGee. Court McGee is also a very, very good fighter, has so much experience in the UFC. He's 11-12 in the UFC. So just putting that there. He has, 23 fights in the UFC total, whereas Michael Chiesa has 20. I think Michael Chiesa is not only, a bit younger here, but he's just going to have, I think, more tools in his game where he could potentially out-grapple and submit Court McGee. Now, Court McGee does have some pretty slept-on power. Like, he definitely could catch Michael Chiesa and hurt him on the feet. But I just feel like Michael Chiesa, his last fight against Max Griffin, he still looks like he's in pretty prime form. Maybe coming out of the prime, obviously, but I still think he's going to have a better chance at getting the W here over Court McGee. The next fight on the card, we got Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Bellato. This fight actually previously, I think, was scheduled for a different fight card maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it obviously fell through. I'm still going Rodolfo Bellato in this fight. I feel like he is just a powerhouse, and I don't really like... I like Paul Craig as a fighter, but I don't like how he's been handling some of those powerful shots when they're coming his way. And I just feel like Rodolfo Bellato is not a guy you want to go in there and be questionable on in terms of if he's catching you with some power shots, you cannot be in hesitation mode. I feel like Rodolfo will be able to hurt Paul on the feet and get it to the ground. Now, should it go to the ground, Paul Craig always has that outlier with his jiu-jitsu. Could he throw up a crazy sub and get Rodolfo out of there? It's always possible with Paul Craig, but I don't see it happening in this fight. I think that Rodolfo's got a much higher chance of knocking Paul Craig out than Paul Craig does submitting him. Next fight on the card, we have Alonzo Menifield versus Omar Sy. Okay, so Alonzo Menifield, guys, I wanted to pick him in this fight. The issue I had with that, though, is that Alonzo Menifield, 9-5 in the UFC, he's 37. He's not necessarily like too old for light heavyweight, obviously, but I do think that given his recent exchanges with power punchers, I just feel like Omar Sy is going to be able to catch him with something that's going to hurt him. And then Omar Sy's not only got the age advantage and a significant size advantage. The only disadvantage Omar has is a lack of experience in the UFC. He's 2-0 in the UFC, whereas Alonzo's 9-5 in the UFC. And Alonzo's fought some really high-level guys in that division. I just feel like Alonzo has a potential to get knocked out. But then again, like I said, we haven't seen that much from Omar. So it's really hard to gauge, but I'm leaning Omar Sy just based off the fact that he's got a size advantage. He's shown very good skills in the octagon. I think that he's going to have a little bit too much for Alonzo to deal with, but that could be wrong because now I'm kind of feeling like the experience edge that Alonzo has may help him pull out a win, whether it be by decision or even catching Sy with something of his own, because Alonzo is a fucking brick shithouse. He can throw. Fight number 9, we've got Abdul-Malik versus Cody Brundage. I got to go Abdul-Malik just solely based off the power this man has. Now, he did almost get KO'd in his last fight by that crazy spinning elbow that his opponent landed, which I don't even remember who it was that landed that. But he was able to bite down, stay in there, and then find his finish that he needed to get in that fight. I feel like when you compare that to Cody Brundage is a fighter. A lot of people say he sucks. I feel like he is decent. He's not the best fighter, but it's like Cody Brundage will have like a fight where he just looks like a world beater. Like when he knocked out Tresean Gore, I was shocked. Like I was so shocked. And then like you see some of his other performances, you're like, this is like a different person. And his last performance, he definitely had a banger with his former training partner. Almost got knocked out himself, but was able to, dig deep and really, put it out there and get a really solid win in his last showing. I just don't think that Cody can do that against a guy like Abdul-Malik, who's clearly like a specimen to behold and a guy who has power like no other. I just feel like Abdul-Malik's going to catch Brundage at some point in this fight and knock him out or hurt him badly and then win by ground and pound, probably in the first or second round. So I'm going to Abdul-Malik. It could be wrong, but that's who I'm picking. Fight number 10, we got Cody Garbrandt versus Raoni Barcelos. So I wanted to go Cody Garbrandt, guys. The reason I didn't is he's 9-6 in the UFC, 33 years old, so he's still young, and Cody is he's a beast, guys. Like, Cody's so good. My issue that I have, though, is that Raoni Barcelos is on a win streak. He's 38, so he does have an age disadvantage, but the way that Raoni Barcelos was able to dispatch of Peyton Talbot, who Peyton Talbot before that fight looked like the next guy, like the next guy that's going to go up the ranks in bantamweight, and we saw what happened there. Raoni Barcelos ate everything that Peyton had and then some, and then was able to not only, counter, but actually win in the striking exchanges. That shows me that not only does he have durability that will play very well for him against a guy like Cody Garbrandt, who we know can still fucking throw fast and heavy punches too. And the thing that I always worry about with Cody is it's never a question of Cody's ability to strike, because we know that the guy is one of the best strikers in the world. Can he stay durable while eating the shots that are coming at him? And Raoni Barcelos was able to sting Peyton Talbot, who previously, in the UFC at least, had shown no signs of even being remotely hurt. And Raoni Barcelos was tagging his ass. So I feel like if Barcelos is able to land any of those types of shots on Cody Garbrandt, it's definitely likely to go the way of Barcelos, and likely that a referee stepping in to pull him off. So I feel like Barcelos will win the fight. I love Cody Garbrandt. Who doesn't? Like, the guy's got some of the best striking. And hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Cody gets the W. Fight number 11, we got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Andre Petroski. Oh boy, guys, this fight, I'm going Edmen Shahbazyan. I think Edmen Shahbazyan has a really solid game. Although he did lose to Gerald Meerschaert in a crazy, beating the fuck out of him so much that he got so tired that Gerald Meerschaert ends up choking him out. I do think that Edmen Shahbazyan is going to he has the tools, training previously. I think he trained at AKA, or he trained with Ronda Rousey, so he has a little bit of ground game, and now he's solely been focused at the Extreme Couture camp and working with Eric Nixick and guys like Sean Strickland. I think Shahbazyan's striking is going to be levels above Andre Petroski, and I also think that his ability on the ground will be able to kind of stop Petroski's game of clinching against the cage or taking him to the ground and just kind of holding him. Petroski definitely has a tendency to do that, and I just feel like in a striking matchup, though, Shahbazyan's going to piece him up and potentially find that kill shot that gets him the W. I'm thinking a lot of KOs on this, guys, and I could be fucking so goddamn wrong, though. The next fight number 12. So this one was really hard for me, guys. I wanted to pick Rose, but Rose I feel like there's something going on with Rose where she'll have a classic performance against Tracy Cortez, but then go out there against Blanchfield and just lose everywhere. Like, I just feel like Rose was doing nothing in that fight against Blanchfield, and I'm worried about her going up against someone like Miranda Maverick, who's going to continuously push the pace, continuously try to get her to the ground. Obviously, guys, Rose has this potential to get a KO, as we know, but I feel like if Miranda Maverick is able to, put her game plan to the test, take her to the ground, she's just going to do a typical Miranda Maverick performance where she's kind of just controlling and winning the fight by any means, in terms of, if I'm laying on top of you, or I'm winning in the striking exchanges because we're clinching up against the cage. But I feel like Miranda Maverick will likely try to get Rose to the ground and do her work there, which Miranda Maverick has done very well in the UFC. She's 8-3, 4-fight win streak, maybe even more. I feel like when you consider all of those aspects, I just think that Miranda Maverick's going to go out there and probably just control the fight from start to finish. Now, there's that potential that Rose, being the high-level striker that she is, could catch Miranda Maverick and have her hesitating on these different entries, or even get a finish that way. But I definitely am leaning towards Miranda Maverick getting the win. And finally, fight number 13 on this card, we've got the legend Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin, I like to say Joaquin Buckley. He looks like Tyler the Creator a little bit. Yeah, dude, Joaquin Buckley, this guy he's got a different fucking fire in him, guys. Not only one of the most active fighters, even when he was at middleweight, I just have so much respect for the fact that he just grinds, man. He goes out there several times a year. He appears to bust his ass. He puts on some of my favorite fights. Very entertaining fighter. I just feel like he's riding a certain momentum right now. Also coming into that prime. He's looking like a world beater these days, guys. Like, he goes out there and continues to find a way to put his game plan to the test and get a W. And I think that against a guy like Kamaru, who obviously, guys, Kamaru is a legend, as I mentioned, such a big resume of wins. It's just the thing I worry about with Kamaru is, we talk about ring rust, but this guy's got, God, when did he fight last? I mean, Kamaru's almost coming up on 2 years of no activity, which to me is very worrisome when you're, 37, 38 years old. I just don't see Kamaru being able to completely brush that dust off and dominate Buckley in the way that we've seen Usman dominate other fighters in the UFC. I just don't think he'll be able to do that in this fight, solely because he's at the kind of the tail end of his career here. Like I said, years of inactivity at this point. I think that Joaquin Buckley has a power that, if he starts catching Kamaru, he's probably going to have Kamaru questioning certain things. Kamaru could try the takedown game, but at the same time, I think Joaquin Buckley's got a solid grappling game himself, and he's also very strong, especially at 170. I don't know that Kamaru is going to be able to just manhandle Buckley to the ground, which makes me think this fight is standing. And I think in a standing fight, Kamaru still has a great chance to get a W here, guys. But I feel like it's that ring rust aspect of not getting hit a lot, not having those rounds in the cage. Obviously he's probably sparring, but not getting those looks in the cage with activity, where Buckley has just been basically living in the octagon. Like, the guy's fighting every couple of months. He's pulling a fucking Kevin Holland, and he's riding a momentum right now that Kamaru himself doesn't have. So I just feel like going into this fight, there's a lot of cards stacked in the favor of Joaquin Buckley, but Kamaru has some of those cards that no other fighter has access to, right? Like, he's got the jokers of the deck. He was the champ, and a multi-defending champ who had a reign that is one of the longest reigns we've seen in the modern era of UFC. Like, looking from 2018 to now, Kamaru had one of the most legendary reigns. So he has those aspects to his game that are always going to shine above his opponent. But in this case, I just think that Joaquin is coming in with so much momentum, coming in off of stellar performances, coming in with several fights of activity above that of Kamaru Usman. I just feel like there's no way you can't pick Buckley to win this fight. I could be dead wrong, though, guys. This is the fun thing that we all play with MMA and predictions, and yeah, we shall see what happens. This fight card, though, I got to say, guys, is a fight night card. I'm pretty excited. A lot of these matchups, I think, are leaning heavy towards, finishes, I believe. But as we've seen in some fight cards, it could end up being the complete opposite, right? So ultimately, these are my picks. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and kind of seeing my thought process when I look at these matchups and why I'm picking the way I'm choosing. I really appreciate you guys watching this. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Fight Feed so you can stay on top of all of my future prediction videos and the other MMA content that I'll be posting. Thank you guys again, and I will see you on the next one.